Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb. Today I am absolutely delighted to be joined in the studio, one which we've been working on for over a year when we were speaking in the States. It's probably about that sort of time now.
Yes, and we finally got here.
We finally got here.
We got there, excellent.
Peter McStay, great to have you on board. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm good. It's a beautiful day in London.
It is indeed.
The weather is, been fantastic. So yeah.
Shirt sleeve order.
Well, exactly right. Been hitting the bricks, seeing the clients. So yeah, it's been good.
Brilliant. Well, look, when we talked back and I spoke about that conversation I had with you about a year ago, this was the sort of infancy and ideation of the business at that sort of stage. OptimX has sort of come on quite a lot. I can't believe I missed you in Paris. I was gutted about that when I saw you there. I thought I covered every inch of that place, but we didn't bump into each other over at Trade Tech. But it's been a hell of a journey, and I've been excited about you coming on to talk about it a little bit more.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to build out, a little bit about innovation in the space. We're going to talk about OptimX and what you guys have been doing, and finding out a little bit more about the story. So lots to get into. It's going to be a good one. So let's kick off at the start. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the business.
So OptimX is something I've been involved in really from its infancy, right? So, the team all worked in a similar space, sort of electronic trading, block trading, and we saw, felt there was a gap for something a bit different. We'd seen trends in the liquidity scene that the incumbents weren't really exploiting. So, we got together, sat around, developing a plan of what we thought would be good, and then, shared that with some players in the market to get a kind of consensus, which was quite exciting. And then, worked through the process of getting buy-in, getting funding, building the technology, and now it's a case of deploying it out into the marketplace in the US and in Europe, which I look after, and essentially building it. So it's we're at the reality phase, right? It's not on a piece of paper. It's a case of delivering on what we're promising, getting clients excited and supportive, which they are, and then hopefully growing it into something material.
Tell me about that. How's it been? The reaction been from the market?
Well, look, so the biggest concern you have when you leave, a more, formalised, advanced business is that when you phone up, clients and guys that you know for a while and say, look, I've got something new, that they don't answer the phone, but they do, right? Yeah. People are interested in what you have to say and what you could be bringing to the marketplace. And they'll generally follow the story, and they understand that sometimes it can take a while to get something going, and they can be pretty supportive. I found certain firms are really willing to back stuff, like really early. I can name a number, but I've got clearance to talk about BMO, who really got the model, have been a fantastic partner, and those guys are there and supporting us along with others on the buy side and on the sell side. Others are a bit more wait and see. Yeah. And you kind of. You talk a lot about chicken and egg, where you say, okay, we need your help for this to be something that, hopefully you want it to be, and certainly what we want it to be. And firms are still like, once it's more successful, we be there. And that slows everything down, right? Yeah. And it can be quite painful, and there's quite a lot of awareness amongst those that are saying that's less than helpful, but ultimately it's something you need to work through.
Well, it's one of two big challenges that sort of regularly come up in that sort of thing, isn't it? It's like, right, you have your early adopters, but getting other people on board to do something which makes sense to them, but they have the reticence to be one of the first to get in and innovate, and that's why it's so important to have the right partners at that right sort of stage. And BMO, I think, have always been very good at that sort of thing. Yeah. The second side of it is the dreaded procurement issues. Yeah. So when you're sat there and you're trying to get people in to as a startup and a scale-up business, actually have the confidence to be able to get a process that doesn't strangle you over a year's worth of waiting for procurement processes to come through. So getting those sort of challenges out of the way isn't the first time it's happening, but it feels like at the moment, if you get the right sponsors, there's things that can happen a little bit quicker right now, right?
Yeah, look, it's finding the right people, which means it's a lot of legwork, but ultimately no meeting is futile, right? So even if you come out of there saying, okay, these guys are definitely interested, but it's going to be down the line, that's fine. You just keep them up on the story, but it's getting the early movers that's just honestly so helpful.
And it must be such a different thing for you as you say, coming from an institutional background predominantly,
yeah,
to then coming into this and doing all that sort of stuff. Talk to me about how you've adapted, because that's a big adaptation for you as well, to have a different sell in a different world.
Yeah, I mean,
or so different sell in the same world, should I say?
Yeah, I get. So look, I cut my teeth, you know, on the buy side, and you know, over time started moving closer to, you know, the market, if you like. And as I did that, I was joining smaller firms, right? So I went from, you know, a very large firm in HSBC, and you know, started, you know, was one of the first employees at Liquidity, which had that real startup culture, and then rode that into it becoming a pretty material part of the market in a big organisation.
Yeah.
And I must say, over time, I started to crave wanting to go back to the smaller thing. And that's kind of, you know, having, you know, being fairly confident that I can operate well in a small environment gave me the confidence to say, okay, well, you know, let's go out on our own and see how that feels. Build the journey, I mean, get on there, be there at the first rung, right? You know, I like seeing things through to their conclusion. So, and I really have enjoyed the process. Not to say it's easy, right? But it's been an interesting process. There's been a lot of ownership, being able to really shape something and drive it with the market, which is, you know, pretty exciting. Now I'm pretty keen to see it scale, right? You know, whilst I'm happy to do my own photocopying, it'd be good to have a few more people around. Right? You know, so yeah, but you know, I've enjoyed it. There have been frustrations, but overall, I'm really happy where we are with the business, progress we made, and you know, you can really see where it's going.
Well, when you're in that sort of thing, I mean, for me, as I say, the difference between the conversation we had when we first started talking to now seeing it, and you know, recognising the brand more and seeing the brand out there, as I say, at Trade Tech or wherever it might be, to see that sort of scale. I think once you're in it, you're always your own biggest critic, aren't you? And we want to be here now, we want to be here now, we want to be here now. But what that journey seems to have been, you know, super impressive over that sort of period so far.
Well, thank you very much, and it's really credit to the team that we put together. Like, you know, the senior team have all been in this industry for 20 years and bring a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and a lot of clients, right? You know, so we're able to get straight to the decision makers in many you know, cases, and we're very clear on our message. So we've been, you know, pretty, you know, diligent in pushing out what we think is important when we think it's important, you know, and that's helped us, right? But it's really key. Like, you know, part of this industry, you really need to be out there. You need people to be incredibly clear on what you do, otherwise they get confused. They like to.
That's often the most difficult part of all this, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. So you need to know who you're going to be benchmarked against, you know, in terms of other firms. So we've been pretty good at explaining what our similarities are, but also our differences and where we see ourselves fitting. So that's been helpful. But you know, we talk about innovation. It's difficult, I think, in our industry to come in completely from the outside and say, okay, this is what we want to do, because there are so many complexities, so many layers that you need to get through to be successful, right?
So let's touch on that innovation piece. It's you know, as I said to you before we came on air, we've had shows recently where people have said there's no innovation in the space. It's all just about evolution and changing things through, and it's not like the switch to electronic or anything like that. But I feel like there's such a collision of different market forces and factors happening at the moment, alongside some technical, you know, pretty mainstream technical shifts right now that make it probably one of the most innovative spaces in the area. And you know, whether it's deemed innovation or if it's deemed evolution or wherever it gets, you know, titled, to me it feels like it's a really exciting play. But when you're doing something there, as you say, that is brand new to the market, there is still that sort of, you know, conservative nature of financial services, full stop, to do it. So when something is innovative, I think we are getting better as an industry to sort of adopt to that. We're getting better at looking for that productivity gain, that efficiency gain, that friction reduction, all of the above around it. Tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you've been facing and how you've helped bridge that sort of, you know, innovation journey and got people excited about what you're doing.
Okay. There's a few bits to play with there.
Multifaceted question.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, no. So, okay. Firstly, I would say that there are firms definitely out there that will move fairly aggressively and really, you know, focus resources at getting behind new things, right? So that does exist. You know, you just have to look for them. In terms of, I'd say, and it's not purely specific to trading, but you know, I'll probably focus on that here. I guess in Europe, I think firms are used to things being established in the US first before they're being rolled out here. Our approach is different. We want to, you know, get global quickly.
What prompted that idea?
It's a good question. I think we saw opportunity in Europe was absolutely clear, right? We saw some shifts. I guess I was part of the management team, which Dave, the founder, brought in early. I guess those two things are the reason behind that, right? But, European firms take a lot of comfort when they know it's been bedded in another market, right? So we're going at it differently. So that creates a opportunity, but also a bit of a headwind. Procurement cycles are painful, right? So you get the trader super, head trader super frothy and excited about the proposition, and then it gets into a number of committees that they have to work through, and that is painful. And it's not just us that have seen this. I think even more established firms
are struggling.
Right. So whether that's a good thing or not, I generally think if you want things to develop and innovation to really flourish, we're going to have to figure that out as an industry, right? And it's not just one or two firms. It seems like quite a lot of the firms get stuck in those kind of cycles.
Do you think it's feasible to cure it?
Well, look, I've got a lot of thoughts around this. So, like, the government seems to be making sounds where they kind of want to remove some red tape. We are an industry that, certainly in Europe has been on the naughty step since the financial crisis. There's been a lack of investment in the industry, and the industry shrunk, right? And our market is not in the place it needs to be at, and I think that's been recognised. So, if that government lead is able to then, work its way through organisations who have a bit more urgency, then that can change, right? But it takes quite a lot of will for that to happen. But I'm hopeful.
No, I think that's absolutely the case. And look, I think actually the UK government over the last 10, 15 years has been quite beneficial to tech businesses, tech-driven businesses within the space. It's been very pro-city over that sort of time. And I think right now, when you look macroeconomically, you've got a situation there where there's a huge advantage for the government there to really drive growth within the space, and it's an area there that's itching for growth, because you say, look, this has been a sector that's shrunk, it's been a sector that's been disintermediated and fragmented at various different stages. Right now, a strong capital market sector within this, within London, has the opportunity to really gather a lot of momentum. And to me, it's innovation and looking at things differently and adopting technology and bringing the right sort of tech into play gives us that massive advantage as a nation.
Well, it's also really, really needed. There's some bits. Certainly from the startup scene that I really, really like about the UK, which is, isn't necessarily in place across Europe, certainly isn't in place in the US, and that's around tax incentive for angel investors to invest in startup companies. The difficult bit you have is scale up, because that scene hasn't really developed in Europe to the degree that it has in the US. Once you show any form of success in the US, money starts flooding in, and I worry about that whole scene in Europe. It just hasn't really seemed to build up, and that sort of then feeds into quality companies not being listed here, being listed in the US, and then whilst we're able to sort of get things off the ground, we lose them, right? That needs to be addressed, and I'm not entirely sure what the answer to that is.
And with a company as yours that's looking at breaking in the US and Europe at the same time, does that give you an advantage in that area?
In terms of getting capital in, yes, 100%, without a doubt. So a lot of our initial funding came from Europe. I'd expect, the US, investment become a part of our, future. I'm guessing, right?
And that's again part of the strategy of you being able to say, look, we've got the opportunity to go into both areas here, because as you said at the start, this isn't a usual sort of play, is it? It's like, let's do it piece by piece and gradually globalise. It's a really interesting strategy that you guys are doing.
We've been aggressive. We've got other markets coming, but the view is the markets are global, right? They're international. We partner well. The solution is designed so we can partner well. So in Europe, we'll work with an Aquis, who are one of our investors. Partner with them to get out to the market. We've done similar things in the US, and APAC's on the horizon. Canada could be quite soon too. So we want to scale this thing pretty. So
I think this partnership thing is also really important because, I've said a few times on the show that we've had scenarios where it's always been everyone wanting to keep their own toys and play with their own toys and not share, etc. And this is now becoming a business there where I think that sort of the role of partnership has become more and more significant. The collaboration aspect of this industry has been marked over the last couple of years, and it allows, if we're talking at the start about adopting technology to the industry and new technology and adopting new companies and new entrants to the industry, the ability to speed that up, and Aquis have actually been brilliant about that, particularly with a lot of the UK, the recent stuff. But I think that's a really important way of looking at it and working out how it can come, get put together. I think it's a really exciting way of selling the business these days. Yeah,
it's essential. Like but
it hadn't always been, had it? It's been like this has been about angels or VCs and doing it in a slow pathway. Get the right partnerships in place now. It's a real.
It's essential. I mean, again, it feeds back to sort of the procurement pathways, right? And the questions is, how well capitalised are you? What's your track record? It's like, well, we're new.
Yeah.
I'm still going to ask you those same questions.
Yeah.
So if you're able to, work with a partner that has, that track record, and they become the counterparty in the relationship, then that's going to help, right?
Yeah.
And it has. So that is a essential thing. But you need to pick your partners. But I guess equally, firms know you can't do everything yourself. It just doesn't really work that way. You need to work with things that are new, work with experts in certain areas, and alliances can be useful.
And talk to me a little bit more about you. So obviously there's this frustration of the sort of ball and chain behind real innovation and growth and scale up in the country. You mentioned there about the US being better at the scale up sort of phase, which is something which has been quite widely publicised recently. What else do you think is standing in the way of genuine innovation and adoption in the markets at the moment?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, in the US, they have a culture of let's have a go at something. If it works, brilliant. If it fails, you gave it a go, right?
Yeah.
In Europe and the UK, I don't think that exists, right? It's a case of if you fail at something, you failed big, right? And that can be something that you have to carry around with you for a while, and that does stop innovation, right?
Yeah.
So that needs to be dealt with. As I mentioned, capital is there from angels and a nice tax incentive, but we need more individuals to, be inspired to really do it. So I think that is certainly an issue. To get entrepreneurs, you need to have sort of, some sort of tax benefits as well. I'm not sure that's really worked its way through the system.
Yeah.
And do we really?
Definitely not helpful at the moment, is it?
No. And do we really have a culture where we put out people that have done well as, heroes in the space, or do we say, you do pull them down? I think we do. I think in the US we like people that have done amazing things, and there's a real culture behind that. It's going to take us a while to get there in this country, I think, and that'll just hold stuff back. Right?
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that. I think it's a real shame culturally that isn't something which we're doing. I think there's as we get more internationalised over time, there's an opportunity for us to do that. As everyone sort of sees on social media, and that sort of spreads, doesn't it, a little bit about what it can look like. But I'm hopeful about where that sits. One of the things I think has been really interesting is we've seen changes as a constant in the industry recently. We're seeing lots of changes in terms of tech. We're seeing lots of changes in terms of the markets. Liquidity, the scene has changed tremendously as well. Tell us what's happening in that sort of space and how you see it developing.
Yeah, brilliant. So again, when we were putting the model together, we were informed by the US market, right? And the US market had become increasingly dominated by bilateral trading, right?
Yeah.
So we used to trading happening on exchanges, less of that was happening, and we anticipated this was going to happen in Europe too. So we built a model such that we could really capture that type of trading, bring efficiencies to that scene, and we really have, right? In Europe, that has really caught fire, and it's become a very, very big topic. So we hope to benefit from that, but it's also caused issues, right? So I was at a fix event on Thursday, and a very well-informed group were together, and what they're noticing is US investors are now looking at Europe as somewhat difficult to invest in, because not only is it fragmented, but liquidity picture isn't as clear as it needs to be for them to allocate sizable amounts of capital, simply because they look at the lit book, depth of that, to establish whether it's liquid enough for them to invest in. Now, a lot of that liquidity's been pushed to the close or pushed into bilateral frameworks. That's not being captured by their analysis, which is causing them questioning whether there is sufficient liquidity in the market for them to do in the market what they need to do. That's a problem. That's affecting the industry, which means the industry will come together to try and solve it, right? I think at the institutional layer, we'll see changes there. There need to be changes, right? The other one is the retail scene in the US is such a huge part of the marketplace. We haven't really been able to develop that in Europe, and there's some reasons around that that are down to our market structure or are technical, but largely it's down to education, I believe, right? So a lot of people that I speak to outside the industry are happy to walk around with a phone and bet on a three-legged horse or invest in a meme coin that they don't really understand, but they won't support a stock, they won't buy it, right? Well, that's
that, isn't it?
Well, is it a hangover from the financial crisis, or is there a lack of financial literacy? I think a bit of both, right? So we need to really work through that.
Yeah. When you look at your business at the moment, and you're looking to the future and saying that this is where we can go, where we want to be. This is what we can do, and you've talked a little bit about, I guess, the reticence of certain companies and the absolute adoption of others. What is it that you can do for the businesses that you're looking to partner with, that you're looking to get on board as clients? Where does the advantage come for them?
Great point, and that's a very, very core part of our model, right? So we've got a clear sort of suite of functions that we are delivering out to the market now. Once in play, the idea is we want to step back, right? It's your sandbox. Our job is to bring together the buy side and the sell side and give them a technology, but the idea is that their relationships govern where they want to take it, and they are the governors of how that works, right? We're just going to sit back. We've launched in equities because that's what we know. But these firms that we work with, trade multiple asset classes. We're agnostic. We're not a broker with pure technology, so we don't settle trades. They're just matchable symbols. So the idea is, the model adapts to where the marketplace wants it to go, and that's quite exciting because I've been involved in trying to roll out other asset classes, and there's always frictions and issues there because you're taking a view, whereas you're able to allow the market to take that view and also benefit from it because of the economic model that we have and whatnot. So I'm quite excited to allow, once we're distributed in equities, to see where the market wants to take it, because there's all sorts of ideas out there.
I mean, it's more and more the case, isn't it, when you talk about multi-asset opportunities, and even actually with everything that's happening, I think that we're seeing more asset classes arrive and more opportunities that sort of come into it. To have something that can scale into all of those sort of areas is really, because you used to be sort of very equities orientated or derivatives orientated, etc., product wise. Now to actually have that sort of thing and manoeuvre around it, it gets fun, doesn't it?
Well, that's
the potential.
Well, that's the thing, and you don't necessarily want a bunch of equities guys telling other asset classes where the market's going to go. We kind of want to say, okay, look, you've got subject matter experts, you understand what the technology can do, it's multi-asset. What do you need from it, right? So I think that's a neater way to go at it, instead of cooking up a model, in a room that suits you as an operator. Much prefer to sort of throw it out there to the industry. But will the industry grab it? I guess we're going to find out, right?
Well, look, the encouraging signs are there at the moment, right?
Without a doubt.
And I just want to go back to something you just mentioned beforehand there about saying, look, it's technology. You've gone through your background. You talked about the sort of environments you've been in beforehand. Thinking it from an entrepreneurial background and thinking about your starting the journey and all that sort of stuff. What was it that really sort of shone out to you to say, this is the play that I want to invest my career in now?
It's the model. It's something I know a lot about, right? So we kind of made it a little easier to sort of transition into something. It was something completely wild that I had no idea about. It would have been more of a shift. What we've got is a model that says, okay, this is what works, this is what we think doesn't work, and then we've come up with something that we think is where the market's going, right? That certainly helped. And you also know the players, right? It's not like I'm picking up the phone to guys that I've never spoken to before. You're speaking to your network and asking them their sort of feedback on the model and then commitment to support it. So that made it a little bit easier. As I mentioned before, when you go into firms with something completely new, you do have that, oh my God, will they listen to me? But they do, right? Everyone wants to be at least part of the conversation, because at the end of the day, we're a market that people like to talk about stuff, and if you've got something new, then people feel relevant talking about you.
Tell me about that, because I think it was the sort of trade tech debut for you guys, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
And it was out there. Tell me about what some of the feedback was there.
That was really great. So, firstly, Dave Barnett, who founded OptimX, he was on the innovation panel, and it's good to see an innovations panel. Quite why it was on, as late as it was, was a bit disappointing. But it's good to see firms coming over, and you'll see again, typically from the US first. Looking to launch in Europe, but
there's some interesting names on that panel, weren't there?
And they're interesting products, and I kind of had the jump on it because I've been working closely with in the US market, and they're interesting models, interesting regulatory challenges that some of these models are going to have as they launch in Europe, which I'm a little bit disappointed around. But it's great to see new things out there, because there hasn't been much new in Europe for a very, very long time. And that's a shame, right? So good luck to them all, and great to see some movement. But from our perspective, I think firms are used to, they followed our story. They're now looking to see uptake and growth in the model. There was a lot of encouraging conversations and follow-ups from the conference. So it was always a great forum. Paris in spring is always nice. I chose to cycle there this year.
Amsterdam next. Oh, you're part of the cycle, were you?
Yeah. So I did that. So I had slightly sore legs, but that
was before this time, wasn't it, rather than after as well?
And I think that's the right way to do it. Because if you've been standing up, that is the downside. But Amsterdam next year. So I'm sure we'll be there.
You'll see it, get there again. Okay. Speaking of cycling,
yes,
I know you've got something else coming up on that as well. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing there.
Yeah. So. There's a guy called Brian Harkins who's done a number of really interesting things in the equity trading industry in the US. Has a ride that he put together a number of years ago called Wall Street Rides. Now it's called Bride's File, and it looks to raise money for a charity he cares about and one I care about, which is research in autism. So whilst that started in New York, it's grown to other US regions, and I believe into Canada as well. We're bringing it over to Europe. So on the 27th of September, we're going to have a ride around beautiful South Downs.
Some hills there, isn't there?
There's one or two. I was out on Saturday, and we found some of those hills. But looking for support from the industry. There's already some support from individuals and corporates that are looking to get behind it. So
fantastic. And where can people find out a little bit more about it?
Once this goes out, I'll put some information on the back of it, I think. And there's some websites and whatnot. We'll be making some noise on it as we go. And you're very welcome to bring the Lycra out and join us.
I have to get a bike first. I might run it. Let's finish by talking a little bit about the future. So, as you say, look, exciting journey so far. Actually, I'd say let's finish. I'm going to circle back on that because there's one more thing I want to ask you after it. But let's look at the what the future looks like for the business. What's exciting that's coming up? What can people expect to see and hear from the business in the next couple of months?
It's all about growth. So, technology's been deployed, all the regulatory permissions are in place. You've got procurement pathways that are being followed. There are vendor integrations. So a lot of behind the scenes stuff is happening and at various stages. So next loud noise will be about the first trades, and then it's the growth of the trades and growth of the clients coming on, and it's really proving the business can be sustainable, right? So that's really probably the next you'd like to say 9 months, but probably longer, right? Then it's a case of, okay, how do we innovate now? There's a stable footing. Where do we see growth? And I see growth in other regions. I see growth in different types of trading going into our construct in equities, and then I see growth in other asset classes.
And regions-wise, I presume you're talking Asia and beyond and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I look after EMEA, so specifically growing through the continent, growing through the UK, which has been our main focus. Other aspects, you think about MENA, you think about South Africa and other markets like that. We'll be looking to deploy there, and then obviously Asia as well.
Perfect. Right. And I said, look, there's another question that popped into my head, and I just think there's as I think I said to you the other day, this is a program that gets watched by a lot of different people at a lot of different stages of their career. You're at a stage now where there'll be lots of people who are taking this sort of leap, and as you mentioned on the stage at Paris, there's a lot of companies there. We haven't seen a world of innovation in this space for a little while. We're starting to see some companies doing some quite good things. You've had the benefit of launching something in a new region, doing some cool stuff, knocking on these doors. Getting the first wins for it. You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of the last couple of years. In a time where we've seen enormous volatility at the same sort of stage. So if you're to wind back and say to the you starting up at that sort of stage, or anyone who's about to go through that same sort of journey as you've been on now, what are some of the key takeaways and lessons that you sort of you'd be looking to give that person?
Okay, so I don't think it's a surprise that it's a bit of a roller coaster, right? So it's more of a volatility trade than even I anticipated, and you get some amazing highs. So closing out a funding round is pretty huge, right?
Yeah.
Never done that before, but winning there was great. Adding new clients, seeing the first liquidity come in, all those things are fantastic. But you expect rougher times, right? That check that doesn't come in, that client that says, "I'm sorry," 6 months down the line, that kind of thing. So that's a bit frustrating. So accept that. You're going to meet so many people, when you launch something new that you haven't necessarily met. No conversation should be turned down, right?
Yeah.
You need to be speaking to everyone. It's amazing what can come out of the most random conversation. Keep your ears open and keep your eyes open would be one, and keep an open mind, but also you've got to stay optimistic, right?
Yeah.
You need to be an optimist. I've heard it a number of times, from entrepreneurs, and it's so true, right? Okay, that's a kick in the teeth, but you know what? That is 6 months. That's going to turn into something really, really important. Yeah. What can I focus on today to, improve my mood? Get some easy wins down, and then, continue grinding it out. So,
I think that's the important part of it, isn't it? My father-in-law talks to me all the time about turning negatives into positives. I love that as a concept, because I think sometimes, particularly as you say on that journey, it's not linear.
No.
You have your ups, your downs, your wins, your losses, and I think sometimes people can get themselves into a spiral around various things, and it's called, a friend of mine was talking once about the confidence spiral, where you just sort of see things going down. It's very easy to loop into that sort of play. But where I see it is what are you learning from it? Where can you push yourself into it? Keep embracing the aggro, embracing the difficult sort of stuff, and pushing through. And I think there's no better thrill than seeing an idea, as you say, a piece of paper, turn into a product, turn into backing, turn into validation, turn into clients that are getting involved in it. And like I say, everything I've seen and read and heard and spoken to you about with the business so far just sounds like it's the right thing at the right time, solving the right problems at a really exciting time for the space. So,
thank you very much.
Keep it up.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Cheers.
If people want to get in touch and find out a little bit more from you, what's the best way of reaching out?
Reach out to our website or just find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Right. There we go. Well, listen, thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.